This next episode is not, well, given the last episode, it is definitely not bad. And it is surprisingly our final Cutie Mark Crusaders episode. A lot of finals here. Growing Up is Hard to Do. A more relatable title that could not be taken seriously otherwise. So, this episode begins with the Cutie Mark Crusaders basically planning out their trip to go to the county fair in Appaloosa, where they basically are together and basically got all their plans in shape, except for one minor problem. They don't have a chaperone.
I thought you were going to ask Applejack. I don't suppose you asked Rarity? You mean we spent all this time planning a trip and none of us asked any pony to take us? In our defense, every other part of the trip was planned really well.
I really just like their reactions to all this. But, yeah, so this setup we kind of think is kind of flimsy, but let's see how the episode goes on as we get to kind of a nitpick, but let's get into it. As the CMC basically go to try to ask all the adult ponies they know, starting with Rarity, but they all have very convenient reasons as to why they can't join us.
I'm sorry, darling, but I can't possibly go to Appaloosa. I promised to deliver a new design to Fancy Pants for his Monocle and Top Hat Appreciation Society soiree.
A very specific soiree.
Can you finish it tomorrow? Well, I could. But you learn as you get older how important it is to keep your promises, especially when running a business. Maybe we should just go by ourselves? What? Oh, my dear, no! Appaloosa's far too long a train ride for young folks without accompaniment. You could end up in the wrong place entirely. What?
Yeah, I've been there before. I still remember the one time on my way back to Mitchell, I think it was for my second semester of my freshman year, I ended up rushing getting onto the train, but I ended up getting on the train as far as New Haven. I was able to get on an Uber and get back to Mitchell just fine, but that was a situation that I had no idea I was about to get myself into. And I basically am a lot more cautious nowadays. Keep in mind, I wasn't a kid when this happened. I was a freshman in college when this happened. So anyways, the Cutie Mark Crusaders then go to ask Rainbow Dash, but she can't do it either because basically there's a situation that's going on with the Wonder Balls.
Young ponies like you could get lost and never find your way back. But I still can't go. Being a Wonder Ball isn't just about showing off. It's also a responsibility. You'll understand when you get older.
Alright, so anyways, you could probably guess the theme of this episode, but then the Cutie Mark Crusaders go and ask Applejack, but she can't go because Big Mac is too sick to go, and...
Speaking of which, don't you even think about trying to go without a grown pony there to take care of you. You could end up in hot water, or worse.
Yeah, kind of like what you did to them in Appaloosa's Most Wanted. Not getting over that. So then they go... basically have a long conversation to try to ask Fluttershy, but she is unable to go either. Very conveniently, Twilight can't do it either because...
Guess that means Twilight's busy too? I'm afraid I am. Star Swirl sent me this enchanted flower and it isn't doing well. If I figure out its magical properties, maybe we can save it. So that's a no on going with us to the fair? We've already asked Applejack, Rainbow Dash, and Rarity, and none of them can come. And every pony made it clear we're too young to go on our own.
Kind of like the adorable facial expressions. But, yeah, you probably noticed kind of the setup of this episode. And for the last Cutie Mark Crusader episode, it seems pretty weak. Because the nitpick that I have for this episode is that the Cutie Mark Crusaders have asked all the main six, except for Pinkie, but they haven't asked any of the other adult ponies they know, such as Miss Shirley, Granny Smith, Pinkie Pie, or even an Aunt Lofty and Aunt Holiday. It's kind of weird how they just basically ignored Scootaloo's Guardian since they basically just moved to Ponyville. Well, there's actually a reason for this that actually kind of makes sense. Because it turns out, looking at the episode on the Wikipedia page, according to the writer of the episode, Ed Valentine, This episode was basically written according to Jim and Miller, the writers wanted to age up the Cutie Mark Crusaders since season 6, though I heard from the Cartoon Heroes review of this episode, brief review of it, is that this episode has been in development of season 5. So, yeah. So, with this kind of setup, obviously considering that it's basically implied from different sources that basically this episode was in development since season 5 or season 6, regardless of whichever one it is, it definitely feels like an episode that's either season 5 or season 6, not a season 9 episode. So even though it makes absolutely little sense with all the continuity that we have nowadays, with that bit of context, it makes a bit more sense since, as I said, with this kind of setup, the whole episode now feels like an episode from season 5 and season 6, which makes kind of sense.
Oh, definitely. You could take the wrong train.
So after repeating the same thing they already know, as we kind of get the moral, we basically get our convenient plot device, where the Cutie Mark Crusaders basically then wish...
I wish we didn't have to wait to grow up. I wish it would happen all at once. Then we know everything we need to get to the fair and back with no problem. I just wish we were as old as our sister. Then no pony could tell us what to do, and we'd be able to take care of ourselves.
So the convenient plot device actually grants the Cutie Mark Crusaders wishes and makes them adult ponies.
Do you know what this means? We can go over the bear!
So yeah, as far as the designs of the older Cutie Mark Crusaders, it really kind of fits into their characters, and I definitely do like their older designs. And it's also kind of the depressing note to see that even in spite of this growth, we see that Scootaloo's wings still can't grow. So that's something to get depressed about when you think about it too hard. So the Cutie Mark Crusaders then rush over to the train station as they basically talk about all the positives of being grown up, considering how faster they're going on their hold.
You're not kidding. I don't know how much of this my scooter can take. Oh, and no pony yelled at us to slow down even once. Being a grown-up is great.
You know, if the codename kids next door are watching this episode, they'll just look at this as like a massive betrayal at this point. So they barely manage to get onto the train.
We're grown-up ponies now. We can do anything. And all those worries Twilight and the others had don't apply anymore. Because we're big. And being big is all it takes.
Yeah, so this is the kind of episode where you know it's going to go, since this episode talks about multiple things that kind of basically applies. And I'll basically talk about it briefly as we actually, believe it or not, in a while, we actually get to our next song of the season. Yeah, it took us about another 8 episodes to get to the next song, but the next song from this episode is Being Big Is All It Takes. Oh, and by the way, Miss Cheerily is on the train while this is happening, FYI. Now, as far as this song goes, I actually rather like it. Honestly, it's pretty been in a good while since we had a good Cutie Mark Crusader song in a while. I think probably since Hearts as Strong as Horses have I not really gotten a song that was this enjoyable. I really like the animation and the lyric, and it's just really an all-around good time and bit of a catchy song. Now, like I said, as we said, with the setup of this episode, we kind of get the idea of what the moral is, as it talks about multiple things, such as responsibilities and the ability of being able to grow up. As right away, as I think the Voice of Reason pointed out in his review, we kind of get the idea of what the moral is, but there is a good reason for it.
The appearance of maturity doesn't equate to the act of maturity.
Yeah, because as we see, even if the Cutie Mark Crusaders are grown up, they're still fools. They aren't mature enough yet, and now they think that just being big means that they can do whatever they want. Right, because they still have the mind and bodies of fools and not really understand or know what's going on around them. And even though while this moral is rather flimsy, and this is not really what I expect to be, to be the last Cutie Mark Crusader episode to be, since as I said, this is kind of a moral that, you would expect from them in Season 5 or Season 6, but knowing how it is, it kind of makes sense. But essentially, in a way, considering that anybody who has watched the show for the intended age demographic, as well as the voice actresses at their time being about as close to the same age as I am, it pretty much makes a lot of sense that they're getting older, and I think that for the kids that have been watching this show since the beginning, I think this would be kind of an important lesson for them. So we'll get more into it when we get more closer to the end, but essentially what happens is that after the song ends, the Cutie Mark Crusaders end up going off on the wrong stop, basically coming into reality, as I said, what I basically went through with trying to get to New London and ended up in New Haven. Basically, they ended up proving Twilight and the other main six's concerns, how they basically got off at the wrong stop.
I think I ate too many snacks.
This doesn't look like Appaloosa.
It isn't.
You all heard that, right?
Hello?
Do you think we got on the wrong train? I thought trains just took you where you wanted to go.
So that kind of raises the kind of questions, is that knowing that I've taken the train multiple times, does it raise the question that the Equestria train system doesn't have a schedule or anything like that? Like, do they just print out tickets that basically say tickets for train and not for a specified location? Like, didn't the conductor basically realize, say, you're on the wrong train, you guys need to get off? So, who's been putting it in their heads just to assume that basically the trains can take you anywhere you want? Oh, and the creepy conductor from Sounds of Silence is back.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but you three must not travel much. This is Hazy Junction. The train to Appaloosa isn't for a few hours.
So that raises another question, not to do with this dialogue, but rather does the Equestria train system have to hire creepy conductors? Like, are they just that light on staff? Like, do they have to hire, like, creepy conductors to give ominous details to make everything seem evil?
Or you could set off on hoof. It's treacherous and confusing, unfit for the young or timid. Yeah, but you three are grown-ups. You'll be fine. Yeah, I'll write down some directions.
Yeah, but even grown-ups can get lost, because believe me, now seeing 35 seasons of The Amazing Race, even the best teams can end up getting lost and end up getting eliminated.
Maybe we should wait for the train and miss the fair? We already ended up in the wrong place, which is exactly what we were warned about. And what if we can't follow the directions?
Yeah, so this is what I will say. I do like the fact that basically the Cutie Mark Crusaders are aware of the warnings that they were given and didn't list them, and they are aware that they basically screwed up. They are aware of these mistakes, so it's not like that they're being oblivious, but they do decide to trek on as they basically head to the jungle, and we find out this conductor also has basically asthma.
Sorry, I've got kind of a throat thing.
And just as basically the guy said, the Cutie Mark Crusaders try to navigate through the jungle, but even with the map, they still end up getting lost.
Sweetie Belle, are you sure this is the right way? Sweetie Belle? Toodaloo? Ah! Don't do that! Girls? Maybe we should head back to the station. I'm not sure we can. I think we're lost. Just like Twilight and the others said. Look, where were you when I was feeding and caring?
But they then come across two new ponies, and they make this remark.
Ah! Wild swamp ponies!
I'm kind of wondering what those two background ponies are doing. Are they huffing at the Cutie Mark Crusaders, hiding in the bushes, or are they hiding from the swamp ponies' remarks? And are swamp ponies a thing? Are they like those swamp guys in Avatar: The Last Airbender? You know the episode where they basically kidnap Appa and Aang and his gang have to like go after him and they come across these swamp waterbenders? Is it like that? It raises kind of tons of questions. So, anyways, they keep up the appearances that they're not actually bulls and still grown up as we meet these two new characters that are fighting.
Okay, but that swamp is pretty confusing if you're not from around here. I'm Spur, and this is Biscuit.
Spur and Biscuit. You know what? It's been 9 seasons, I won't question the name. But they're basically holding a rattling box of some kind.
We're not confused. We're just exploring new ways to Appaloosa.
Hey, that's where we're going.
No, it isn't.
But conveniently enough, Spur and Biscuit are also going to Appaloosa.
Which is it? Biscuit thinks he can just take Floofy here to the fair.
Why not? It's just up the road, and Floofy's my pet, too.
And apparently it's a pet named Bloofy. Honestly, the One Piece fan in me is so tempted to take the B off, and sometimes I keep forgetting there's a B in the name, and I'm just imagining it's basically a rubber stretching pet at this point. So the two continue to argue on what to do with the pet, since they don't know what to do, and the Cutie Mark Crusaders have to converse with what to do, since, as I said, they still have the appearance of being grown-ups, but they're not mature enough to know it, as they think that because they're big, they can give any sound advice.
What do you girls think? If they go to the fair, we can tag along. And Spur probably should cheer Floofy. I mean, it's something that grown-ups would say, right? As grown-up ponies, we think you should share Floofy and let Biscuit take him to the fair.
That is some quality grown-up advice.
But Floofy's never been around anything that exciting. What if something goes wrong? We're headed to the fair too. Since we're such great fact givers, feel free to ask us for more.
So then they end up going to the fair, and while Biscuit and Spur continue to argue, Spur tries to get the advice of the Cutie Mark Crusaders when Biscuit wants to sign up Floofy for basically the pet competition in Appaloosa, and we also get a fun cameo from Troubleshoes, so it's nice to know he's doing well. But we see that the act of the Cutie Mark Crusaders still being themselves despite being in grown-up bodies essentially comes to full fruition as they basically go off to do everything that they can, and Spur desperately tries to follow them.
What happened to being able to ask your advice? You ran off the second we got here. Where's Biscuit and Bloofy? That's why I came to find you.
So they basically go over to the Buckball Stadium Arena, which has now been redesigned for a competition. Oh, and by the way, we also see Mrs. Cakes in the background, so... And naturally things, well, don't go too well.
It's one thing to bring Bloofy to the fair, but it's another to stick him in a showcase.
What's the big deal?
You're supposed to be sharing him. Yeah, I'm with Biscuit. The showcase looks like fun. Sorry if I think taking care of Bloofy is more important than having fun.
Floofy's just excited. He probably just wants to get out.
What the hell is that? Like, I have a legitimate question, because normally the creatures in MLP that are not ponies are usually based on something, but Bloofy looks like a purple Shih Tzu, a purple Chihuahua. I don't know what that is supposed to be, and it's never given an explanation of what Bloofy is. I mean, there is going to be an explanation, but it's not like there's anything of origin that I can think of. But essentially because the Cutie Mark Crusaders generally can't give good advice, since they think that being big means that they can say or do whatever they want, basically...
Just upset you have to share him. What if you took a little break? You mean, like, leave?
If sharing him is too hard, that might be the best thing. Take our word for it. We are grown-ups.
I don't know what Spur's so worried about. Bloofy and Biscuit are having fun. Yeah, what could go wrong?
the endless words that are the absolute kiss of death, as naturally, Bloofy then becomes the giant purple Tasmanian devil. Yeah, well, what could possibly go wrong is one of those things that you should never say. So naturally, like I said, Bloofy then becomes the giant purple Tasmanian devil, as admittedly we do get a fun Wizard of Oz reference as we see one of the ponies is Dorothy Gale, and the Cutie Mark Crusaders realize that they've done screwed up. So because they don't really have a clue of what to do, of how to help them, they basically end up causing a riot, as we then basically find out that Twilight and Fluttershy arrive at Appaloosa, as we get to the explanation of what Twilight was studying earlier.
I hope you're right about the girls coming here. Well, once we read Shaytail Evergreen's warning of the Flower Grant's wishes,
The Flower Grant's wishes. So basically, it's a wishing flower, and the way that its aura was made was kind of the design of basically the rose from Beauty and the Beast.
it wasn't a stretch to think they wished themselves to the fair. It's all they were talking about. Maybe since we told them they were too young to come, they wished to become grown-ups, then came here and caused some kind of trouble that led to a town-wide panic. Yeah, or that.
I really like how Twilight basically is like, yeah, I guess I kind of expect that to happen, as basically Cutie Mark Crusaders tell them what's going on, and I mean everything, and Biscuit is standing literally right behind you as you're saying all this, so, oops.
Just like you said we would. Then we met these souls who led us to the fair, and we tried to give them some grown-up style advice, but it turned their heads into a tornado that back destroyed the whole town.
It's like basically the animators knew how predictable the setup was, and Fluttershy and Twilight are just like, yeah, we kind of expected this to happen. So they basically go and we basically kind of figure out what exactly Bloofy is.
Goodness, a really nasty. Very rare. Just the cutest little things when they're not excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, so a whirling Mongtooth. Like I said, I don't know if that's really based on anything, because there's not really much of an explanation of what that thing is supposed to be based off of. So pretty much, they realize that because...
Tight bond with his caretaker. They're the only ones who can get them to stop spinning.
Spur's the one who really took care of Goofy. We have to find her.
You will go look for her.
So they get Spur to basically calm down Bloofy, and long story short, they do end up getting Bloofy back in the box, which is literally the easiest thing to do.
How did you know what to do? After years of experience with animals, I picked up a few things.
So they arrive back at the train station as basically the Cutie Mark Crusaders apologize to Spur and Biscuit, even though Bloofy ended up getting first place anyways for most interesting pet.
Oh, I guess grown-ups aren't always perfect. They sure aren't. But young foals pretending to be grown-ups are even less so. What do you mean? There's only one petal left. But I think the three of you know what to wish for. And I'm pretty sure Star Swirl won't mind.
And if we were old again. Hold on. You three are actually younger than us?
The flower turned us into grown-ups.
Yeah, and it's not like that they intentionally did it on purpose, given how we didn't know what the flower was. So I'd just like to point out that it wasn't their intentional idea.
So, we figured we could do whatever we wanted, but I guess that's not exactly true. We did everything real grown-ups told us not to, caused all kinds of trouble, and things could have been a lot worse. I guess we were pretty selfish. I'm glad you learned something. That's what growing up is, which is why you probably we shouldn't skip anything.
And that's basically, yeah, while it is a moral that's basically pushed into your head as we can kind of pick up on it, like I said, for the kids that have been watching this show since the beginning, and as the intended audience is, it's kind of an important lesson to know, because the reality is that I had to learn a lot of lessons growing up, and I had to learn a lot of them the hard way. And the thing is that as basically this moral is handled a lot better than Flutter Brother, because the reality is everybody is going to mess up. It's going to happen. But what happens is that when you make mistakes, you can get better and learn to make the right choices. And growing up, it's not an easy thing to do, because you have to learn lessons the hard way. Right. And it ultimately comes down to experience. And even when you make mistakes, you can learn from them. And it's those experiences that make you a stronger person and can allow you to make the decisions of what is right and what is wrong. And I think that this episode is a great reminder to the kids that have been watching this since the beginning, and to an extent, all three of the voice actresses for the Cutie Mark Crusaders, since they're about as close to the same age as I am at the time, at least nowadays. So, yes, while the setup and moral is predictable, I think it's still a solid thing to learn. And it essentially ends with them still wanting to be friends, and basically make the last joke that the Cutie Mark Crusaders have to show up with adult supervision next time.
Get a real grown-up to bring you. Deal!
So that was Growing Up is Hard to Do, and yeah, this is a good episode. I mean, yeah, I think definitely, I still think this is a good episode. The thing is, though, this episode is, like, very, very cliched. Once you know what the setup is, you kind of know where it goes to. And like I said, because this episode has been developed in between Season 5 and Season 6, this episode definitely feels like a Season 5 or Season 6 episode, and not really a Season 9 episode. However, in a way, it does also work, especially to the kids that have been watching this growing up, and they're about close to the same age as the Cutie Mark Crusaders, and that acting big and acting adult is not the same as being an adult, because you have to have these experiences and learning mistakes the hard way to basically become a better person, and learning from those mistakes through the experience. And that takes years, and that's why, as the title says, growing up is hard to do, because you have to go through these experiences so you know what to do next time, and if anybody comes across you're in the same situation as you can give them that advice so they can make the right choices. The song is still very go. Spur and Biscuit were definitely fun characters, and basically, while the setup is cliche and you kind of know where it's going to go, it's not really overall, like, back-breaking or anything. It's still a good episode. I just wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, and it's not even the best Cutie Mark Crusader episode. That being said, the moral is definitely still relatable, and I do think that kids still need to, like, learn it, but like I said, this is not really an episode that I would expect from Season 9. But like I said, if you keep it in the mindset that this is an episode that would come out in either Season 5 or Season 6, it definitely would be good. But considering all they went through, I think really at the end of the day, I kind of wish that Growing Up Was Hard to Do would switch places with The Last Crusade. In other words, make The Last Crusade episode 22 and Growing Up Is Hard to Do episode 12. If that episode kind of happened in that order, then I think then The Last Crusade would be a solid Cutie Mark Crusaders finish. But yeah, as a whole, I'd probably say, I think Growing Up Is Hard to Do, I'd probably give it a B-. It's still a good episode, but with the plot holes of how only the Cutie Mark Crusaders ask the main six outside of Pinky and not any of the other grown-up ponies they know, and with its predictability, and it's kind of the episode that comes into the last season, and like I said, feels more like a Season 5 or Season 6 episode, knowing that it was the intention. It's still a good episode, but I wouldn't really consider it one of my favorites. But yeah, final ranking for growing up is hard to do, a B-. Alright, so next time we are going to be looking at the Big Mac question. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.